Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Michael Devellano, and he is the author of Automate, Grow, Biz. Welcome to the program, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here. Excited for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Hey, I love the concept of automation, and I love the combination of the book title, Automate and Grow, because what's the purpose of automation unless it's going to be doing something beneficial? So talk to me a little bit about your background and then what led you to put this book together.
Super. So I've been working since about 2010. I initially started a business that was really focused around building other people's digital products, so kind of their mobile, iPhone, and Android apps and any software as a service platforms. Through that process, I actually, one of the first projects I had was built on the Salesforce platform with the back end. And that was kind of my exposure to Force.com and Salesforce. And what came out of that was an understanding that you can automate business processes using software and digital technology. And so that really is how I kind of cut my teeth in this area. And I think the idea behind Automate and Grow is, I encounter both existing businesses and startup entrepreneurs, and sometimes they're not really technical co-founders, like they're more of like they have the idea or they have a business and they get a little bit of technology overwhelmed. So my philosophy on Automate and Grow was really just to put together a blueprint that would allow any business to, overcome that fear and put a realistic plan in place to put technology in place to automate things. That's really it. And then give them a path to scale up their business that way.
I think that a lot of people get, I would say that the phrase automation can either scare some people or there's misconceptions. Do you find that as well?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Last night I did one of my book signing events at a WeWork in Santa Monica, and I think that, it inevitably steers the way of, hey, is this replacing people? And I think the reality I actually address in the book is there's a chapter called, Don't Be Afraid of Change, and then there's another chapter called, How to Dance with Robots. So I think it's natural that the biggest barrier to this is our fear of it, or the lack of understanding.
Yeah, and what do you find most people are using the automation for? Because I think that you can have some, like I mentioned previously, automate and then the grow, I like that. But then there's automations too on just processes or operations to help efficiencies. Do you find there's a good balance between those two?
Yeah, I think most people are trying to eliminate things that are repetitive but important that maybe aren't that fun for people. So I think that's the first line of defense, and I think it's kind of in four key areas that I talk about. One is how do you automate your product, and I think there's a path to that. So that, through digital innovation, and then the other areas are a little more obvious around marketing, sales, and support. And I think what they're trying to do is just not get rid of people, but to get people focused on more important and high-value work. Yeah.
Do you find that there's specific areas that people focus on first for when they think about automating some processes, whether it's growth or sales or operations, where, you find that, well, we need to start here first or move on to there, but, let's not put the cart before the horse. What are you finding are the 4 or 5 or 2 main areas?
So it depends on the size of the company, but the one area that is really seems like a small thing, but it actually takes a lot of time off people's plate is scheduling. So in particular, if you and I had to book an appointment in the past, we would kind of go back and forth, maybe by text or email or phone call, and say, hey, what do you got for time? And then this is what I've got, and you're trying to figure it out. And I think what companies are cluing in is that there's some really simple ways now that you can buy a software as a service to almost publish your schedule and allow someone to pick a time for them that works on your calendar. And that's one of the areas that I'm seeing actually a lot of growth. And it sounds simple, but the bigger the company, obviously, that gets more complex. But I think that's the one area that's like a no-brainer these days.
Yeah, I mean, even just that one example alone, there's so many times that people would try to book something, whether it's a phone call, an appointment, a service call, and hey, would this day and time work? No, I'm booked. How about this day and time? And you're just back and forth and back and forth.
It's like a telephone game.
Yeah, it's a frustration, but isn't there almost a literal dollar value that can be put on solving that frustration as well?
I mean, you're probably right. I mean, I think especially for people where that time is literally money, let's start at the lowest end not the lowest end, the simplest of, hey, I'm booking an appointment with a coach or a consultant, or I'm booking an appointment with a mechanic, or, you scale it up to any field service, like I'm booking a repair. All that really literally time translates into money for time, right? So I think that's a way to eliminate, probably increase the number of bookings you have, fill up your calendar more, and all of that, I think, translates directly to putting more money in the bank for those types of businesses.
Yeah, and I think it might be hard to say this would save X number of dollars of real exact, but I think it stands to reason that if you have those just back and forths and frustrations and hiccups and things like that, that it would streamline, and that would go to helping put someone's attention on something better. I think that just makes total sense. So what about things like product delivery, or you place an order and then these certain things have to happen, and you're relying on your admin staff, your assistant staff to do these certain things? What have you found that can be automated and still deliver a personal touch and make your company look good?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the approach to that is to look at, again, those repetitive things that are process-driven that maybe you haven't documented. So you used a good example where admin is kind of running around trying to get things done. So the idea there is to really crunch to, what are they doing repetitively, and what are the steps from, hey, here's a problem that a customer has and the steps to that solution. And then what you want to do is you can create in systems, and I'm a Salesforce consultant, so here's a really good example. In Salesforce, you have the concept of a workflow rule, and that is really how you would automate those processes so that they, whether there's notifications, there's a change in status, you're tracking inputs from the customer, you can basically break it down what that person is doing and find how you would automate that digitally, basically using a platform. And I think that's the idea, is to understand what the person's doing and then identify, well, how much of this can we eliminate using a piece of software, really.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think part of that is there's a big gap between what someone would say, I know I need automation, but I don't even know what I need, and then executing. So it's kind of like, okay, well, have someone follow me and film and record every single thing I do in this work. You know what I'm saying? And there's that need, and I know that there's tools for that. But when I am thinking of fulfilling this product order, well, first I log into this and I update that and I do this and I deliver this and I send that. So I think that some people, like a good salesperson, why are you so good? I don't know, I just do things. Well, sometimes it's just ingrained in them. And I think that you need to, when someone is thinking about automation, you got to break your processes down, and maybe even the exercise of doing that to tell you how to automate my business is a great exercise in and of itself, right?
Yeah, I think the best kind of framework that I put in the book, I actually took from a guy named Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. And Dan had a really simple way, and I think this video is actually on YouTube. And what he says is that, let's look at just from the point of view of a business owner. What you should do as a business owner or entrepreneur is make 3 lists every 90 days. And those 3 lists are an A, B, and C list. And the A list is all the stuff in your business that frustrates you. And then the second list is all the stuff in your business that's kind of repetitive but important, but you don't necessarily want to do but has to get done. And then the third list is, this is the stuff where I bring big value. This is where, I'm motivated by this as well, and it brings, big momentum to my business. And then everything on that list that's A, you're trying to eliminate from your business. Everything that's on your list that's B, you're trying to systematize it and put it in a digital technology or process. And everything that's on the C list is the stuff that really inspires you and that you as a leader should focus on. And I think that's really the best example I've found. It's like so simple, but it helps you like put reality to what we're talking about.
I'm sure there's a clinical real name for this, but I'll explain what I mean. When you mentioned Dan Sullivan, the first thing that pops into my mind is a certain phrase. Well, where I'm going with that is we need in business to be so dialed into what we do so that when our target audience and our sphere of influence hears a certain phrase, they think of us. Well, the phrase I think of, Dan Sullivan, is the highest and best use of your time is X. And I find myself thinking that way, and I mentioned it to a client just this week, and I was saying, you know what, the highest and best use of your time is not doing this. That's for the admin staff. You need to be doing
right.
And I think that you're exactly right. You need to be thinking about, well, where should I start automation? Well, the highest and best use of my time is not clicking this to fulfill that and sending this or
right.
whatever the case is. Right? Let's automate that.
I agree. And I think the nice thing about the period of time in business history that we are, is there are a lot of tools available to us. There's relatively inexpensive platforms and software service applications or apps that there's other people out there thinking of these little parts of your business. And so I don't think it's a question of whether you can do it. It's what do you want to do, and then finding the right tool for that. And that's really the exciting part about now. This is not esoteric stuff that's way out there. It's like there's something to address this for you. And I think all I've tried to do is give a really simple framework where people can figure out that stuff and then find the right tool that matches how they want to do it.
So where do you find that people need to start when they're thinking of scaling and growing? And the reason I ask it this way is I think that's where people would first want to start is I want to grow. But that could be the wrong place to start, in my opinion, because if you've got this bucket with holes in it and you just want to get more water in the bucket, dumping more water is just meaning more water is flowing out of the bucket. So maybe you need to automate some things in your processes, your operations, and your deliveries so that then you can scale and grow, and then now you can handle that, build. It's like I remember some author, I think Patterson, had said, build capacity in advance of demand.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the way that I approach it is I always start at the customer, and I look at the customer, and I think the one thing you want to understand is what is the customer buying from you? And really, they might be buying a product or a service, but what they're really buying is a solution to a problem. And then I think the number one job of every entrepreneur today is to look at, can I solve that customer problem now with one of a number of very specific digital technologies? And I think that that's the place to start. And the reason is because if I have a digital product, number one, it's probably very differentiated in the market. And we can talk about what, that might be an app, it might be a software as a service, there might be a solution in one of, I think, 6 areas. Could be in the future, in the very, very near future, it could be an AI tool, it could be, a 3D printed tool. There's a bunch of categories. But I think the most important thing is to understand the customer and what they're buying and why. Because I think what that customer is buying from you or someone else today to solve that problem in 10 years is going to be very different. And I think digital technology is going to change that. So I think the best place to start, and it's actually kind of an exciting, fun thing to do, because now you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty and you're thinking of something that's expansive, right? It's like, well, how would I create a digital product? And the nice thing about the digital product is to deliver more, you generally don't need more hardware and you generally don't need more people. So that's where it's very scalable. If I create a software as a service application that delivers to you what you might be paying a person to do today, and you're willing to pay, every month, a fee to me for that, I could add 100 of you a lot easier than if it was, person-based or hardware-based.
Yeah, that's a huge revelation, I think, that people need to think about. And I've heard this example too, like when you think about, when should I hire someone? When should I outsource something? Or now in this case, when should I automate something? Well, what is your hourly rate? If you're a small operation and you're thinking, well, if I made personally X and I work this many hours per week, then my hourly rate is whatever it is. I'll bet you can find some person that's an admin, clerical person to work for $15-20 an hour, and your hourly rate is quadruple that. Well, same with some automation. Maybe you have to pay some money up front to set it up, consultant, whatever, but when that thing is firing and saving time and freeing up your time to do other highest and best use of your time type activities, it pays off in no time.
Yeah, agreed. Totally. It totally changes your entire business once you go down that path. I mean, the other obvious areas are, let's say you're not going to change your product or your service and you're like just not willing to do that right now. Or, sometimes that takes time to make that change and see what the customer will buy. I think then marketing and sales is the obvious next step. And, you see a lot of marketing automation platforms. And so the idea there is, how do I communicate with both new customers and existing customers in a way that keeps you in front of them? Mm-hmm. And then how do I automate the process of getting them to buy, which is really the sales side, right? And I think those are obvious areas.
Well, and you know what? Let's now take it to another level of, I think that there's some things that you can't or shouldn't automate because that personal touch is necessary. So where do you find people like treading on thin ice to go too far in automation?
I think most people, what we try to evangelize is you're not trying to, make people robots. You're trying to take the robot work off of people so that they can do that high touch, creative, high value, relationship type work. So I think that once people get the little stuff off the plate, their individual plate and then maybe their team's plate, then it kind of frees those people up to do stuff that's going to be premium, really, to the customer. So I don't see a lot of people trying to eliminate other people in their business, really. I think they're just trying to get more motivation into the system, like where it's like, hey, I'm doing something really cool and I want to do it. So I think that's one benefit. And then as the entrepreneur or business leader, whether you're an executive in an existing company or an owner, it's, hey, my people are happy, they're more engaged, and they're doing good stuff for the customer, and the customer is happy because of that, too.
Yeah, that's really, really big, and I think that's the thing to keep in mind. And again, the place to not cross the line is, let's set up so much automation that I'm sitting on the beach with a novel and my business is coming in and closing and automating delivery and I'm not doing anything. Those success stories are few and far between because sometimes your sales staff, you yourself, or somebody needs to automate it just enough to get that interest, and then you get on the phone and talk to someone or you meet with someone in person. So automation has its limits. And I think that people need to realize that personal touch is necessary. Same way as social media these days. Too many people sit behind their computer and click like on a whatever, and they think, I'm selling socially. You're just playing around with the internet. You need to use that and then set up a time to chat with somebody and go, hey, it was great to meet you. Let's talk on the phone, or hey, let's grab a coffee, or let's run another idea by each other. And I think that's where a big mistake comes into, and I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Good point. I think that's a great point. You kind of need to have an understanding of what you're going to get out of it and how you're going to get there. And I think that's the most, have your plan in place, a reasonable hypothesis, test it, and then buy or implement technology. And I think that's what is more, and if you've already bought technology, at least come up with a plan of how to use it.
Exactly. Well, hey, I think I think we can probably talk for another 14 and a half hours on this and still be, cracking the book cover on this one. So where can people learn more about the book, your program, and reach out and connect with you?
Great. So the book is Automate and Grow, and it is on Amazon. But if you go to automategrow.biz, the website, so www.automategrow.biz, and you follow the link to purchase the book, you'll actually get 3 bonuses. So you just drop in your name and email, and then it'll direct you to Amazon to buy the book. If you have, there's 2 other ways that I work with people. One, if you are a Salesforce client and you need some leadership or ideas around that, or developers, Cloud Advisory.io is our Salesforce partner business. And then I also work with companies, usually like 10 to 20 a year, almost as like an outsourced CTO. So if you need someone on your team that you just want to meet weekly or bi-weekly with, that can kind of provide technology leadership in either your startup or existing business, then I'll work with companies on that basis. And that can actually be a kind of a fun experience, and then this kind of gets off your plate. So you have a game plan and then action around all the stuff that we're talking about. And the way to get a hold of me for that is just if you send me an email at robot@automategrow.biz, I'll get that, and we can chat from there, maybe on Skype or a phone call.
Perfect. Love it. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great to chat about these concepts, and I wish you all the great success with your book.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on your podcast.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.